Hogan. Hogan was a big player there, all the way up until the very end. Had Hogan changed at all, personally, professionally, since the years earlier where you worked with him?
You know what? I can't really say. No, he hadn't changed because he was always really good to me. And our matches were always real easy. It wasn't, wasn't pulling teeth. He wouldn't, so no, he didn't change towards me.
Yeah. Have you ever watched Hogan Knows Best?
I've seen a little bit of it.
What do you think?
My opinion, I think, is bad for him.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, and I'll give you a good example. One of the things that exposes him is an old man. He walks around old, looks old, talks old,
right.
Talks all about his bad points. Then, they were in Memphis just a month ago.
Yep.
And here it is. They were on every radio station, every live television station, everything. He was talking about how now he's got a new viewing audience from VH1, Hogan Knows Best. And they barely did 2,000 people in a 25,000 seat arena.
Yeah, it's been the talk of business for a couple of weeks, yeah.
It was really horrible. But they picked, I think what they should have done is stuck what they were supposed to have done. And that was work the angle, which is not really an angle, but it was supposed to be the last wrestling show at the Mid-South Coliseum.
Mm-hmm. And
they would have pulled in some of the people at the place they went to. It cost $10 to park.
Wow.
And then it was so much to get in, and it wasn't well done. They did no promotional stuff till the day or a few days before the show.
Did they contact you at all to do anything on the show?
They asked me about it. I told them I wasn't interested unless I was main event.
Yeah.
And then at the Coliseum, and then then they moved it to the Forum, FedEx Forum, and of course Vince said anybody who works for that show will never work for me, and that's where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wasn't interested.
Now you had a series of matches with your buddy Kevin Nash when you came into WCW. What do you remember back about the series of matches you had with him?
Kevin is he's a real relaxed person, no pressures. He was really trying to make me build me up, to work with Goldberg. So he was really going out of his way to, do well with me. They were, not classic matches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They weren't, and I don't really remember working with him only in a scene. I can't remember where it was, but it was like it was a really hard crowd. We never really worked, and if we were scheduled to work somehow or another, he changed around when we were tagging together. And so that was the one thing about WCW there, and WWE too, but WCW is more fragrant, more often that they would just, Kevin was in charge. If he wanted to, put me and him together as a tag team partner against the Harlem Heat, like in Phoenix one night, that's what he did.
Yeah.
Just
as a student of the game and being in the business for as long as you have, do you think that's one of the main things that changed the tide of the wrestling, more people tuning into Raw? Because WCW would advertise these main events, and then they would either get 60 seconds or they would never get the match they were advertising and expecting to see.
When you asked that question, I was going back to another one you'd asked earlier again. Ask it again.
About WCW, and you were talking about how Kevin, you guys would be booked to wrestle each other, but then you'd wind up tagging. And, a lot of people point to that as a big reason that business went down in WCW, especially in ratings, because they would advertise these big matches.
Okay, the ratings too. Let's get I think that had a little bit to do with it. I think also it had to do with just the timing. They had just come off that big run where they were, killing Vince in the ratings and stuff. I was working for Vince when that was going on, but we were out drawing them in the house shows. And that's why I went to Vince. And I'll give you an example. One time, I was just coming in, and they wanted me to get DQ'd or something by Ron Simmons when he was the Farouk. And I said, I was really upset. I said, because you guys promised me this big run as a baby face, and you put me in a tournament I can't even win. I said, this didn't make sense. He goes, but see, we're trying to do this for ratings. I told Vince right there, I said, Vince, I don't believe ratings mean that much, because we're beating them in the house shows. And that's what our job is to do, is draw money. And I think what you're doing to me here is taking away from me what I can draw. So now that was what, to get to the ratings, talk about that for just a second, but get to the question would be, no, I don't really think it was that. I think it didn't help for sure. But I think they were already on a downhill skid, because I know that going in, because that's why they were, I remember the ratings when I got there. I was putting something always to, try to help the ratings, and we kept it right there, a miserable 2.9, 2.7 to once in a while 3 or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And in WCW, it had the reputation, and guys, that we've done interviews with have talked about it. There were some guys there, and all kinds of names have been thrown around that just mailed it in. And a lot of the guys that took pride in what they do would get very frustrated working with certain guys. Did you find that there were some guys that would just mail it in?
There's a lot of guys in the business, both territories, that would do that.
Mm-hmm.
I hated that, and I hate to be put in a position like that. Someone say, okay, let's do a Code Fresno, or, we'd done a show, say one time when we were trying to make a 3-hour drive to Sacramento to catch a red eye to get home that night. So instead of, but I'll tell you this too now, and I know this was in WWF, when I worked with Vader and I worked with these other guys, we had some really long matches because we had it really down and things were going really good. And they would come to me sometimes and ask me to shorten it up.
Mm.
And I wouldn't, because I felt like if it was right and it was good and I had the people, I was the last match, I didn't give a damn what time those agents got out of there.
Yeah, yeah.
But that is true. A lot of people do want to just call it in and go through the drive-through and get out. And but the thing is about that is that that's really bad for the business, especially when you're trying to build a business or get a territory going back or get it back up. Well, the one way to do that is work harder than you ever worked before.
Did you, maybe with a younger guy in WCW, did you ever find yourself in a situation where you had to say, no, we are going to do it this way because?
Yeah. And I did with older guys too.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. Me and Savage were working against Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit, or one of those, couple guys like that right there. Now I've been told by the office, by Eric, not to come off my feet for anybody, to be real aggressive and do my deal, get over. Because if I don't get over to work with Goldberg, it's not going to matter.
Right.
It's just not. So we were in some Louisiana place, and Dean Malenko said, hey, Sid, I do a really good drop Toho. And Savage was standing there. I said, no, Dean, this is how it's going to work. You're going to come in. I'm going to boot you to the face. I'm going to beat the shit out of you. You tagged out, and I'm going to beat your other buddy up a little bit, and I'm going to powerbomb both of you. I'm going to get 2 victories. I've done that, not just with those guys, I did with a lot of guys, because it's business.
Sure.
And if I didn't do, and I've done it before where I, sort of went along with the program, and then once I got out of there, I was pulled to the side, said, look, this is what they see you on TV. If you don't show that to these people in the house shows, it was just the same as a no-show. And that's the way it really is. If they see this, personality on TV, and all of a sudden they see this guy on his knees begging for, forgiveness from a guy who's 4 foot, that's a no-show.
Yeah. Did you find that a lot, a difference? Because you seem like the kind of guy that you look to the future when you're looking at what you're going to do with this guy next and next. Did you find with younger guys, they were more concerned about getting their spots in a match, where you're concerned about, hey, I'm looking towards the future?
Well, that's something too, is really, the business has changed in this, they call them comedy spots, pops.
Right.
The thing about, for me, and I learned this through over the years, I've been really fortunate to have come across and worked directly with some of the best minds in this business, and not just bookers, but guys who also were workers. And I think it's a lot harder, and this is what I used to do to people, to stand for a solid minute and never move and make that other person do the same thing. Now that, to me, is harder and more uncomfortable than trying to get that cheap pop.
Right.
But if you do that, able to do that, and of course, my style is a little different than a lot of people anyway. I could, like, Sean, Sting, guys like that, especially when I was straight uphill, I could give them one thing, and I said, okay, now just crawl away from me. And when they would crawl, all I had to do is stalk and then stop, look at the people, and it was there.
Yeah.
It's the same as grabbing a hold. You have to find different ways to get the same objective.
Mm-hmm.
But, you can find different ways to do it. And I was, years ago, guy told me, he said, man, you remind me a lot of Johnny Valiant. And I said, what? He said, I want you to do something tonight. And what they wanted me to do was just after, I guess it was probably a wasn't a finish, or maybe it was a finish in the match, but you're the heel, walk out. As you get down that aisle, stop, then turn around and just stand there as long as you can stand there. Take one step back towards the ring and then fucking go back to the ring, to the dressing room.
Yeah.
And when you're able to do things like that and control people's emotions by taking one step, that to me is much greater than doing 50 high spots.